feel good. I knew that I wouldn't. I feel good. I knew that I wouldn't. So good, so good. I got you.
Welcome to the Natural Living Network Radio. Today, we will be investigating a problem that affects everyone, no matter what your age, race, ethnicity, or social economic status. We will look deeply into nutrient deficiencies. We will hear from experts on how and why just about every single person in today's fast-paced society is existing on far less nutrients than their body actually requires to stay or be healthy. This program is for anyone who is tired, who needs better nutrition, or anyone who has any type of health problem. I am very excited about our guest today. We have had him on our show in the past, and he is the most knowledgeable nutrition expert that I have ever met. His name is Dr. Lindsay Duncan, and he is a naturopathic doctor, a certified nutritionist, and has accumulated over 40,000 hours of real-life clinical work, where he basically taught, coached, and helped people get well or earn back their health by using nature, nutrition, supplementation, diet, and lifestyle changes. He has appeared as a nutrition expert on most major news stations, such as NBC, CBS, ABC, CNBC, CNN, and even the BBC in London. He is an expert in plants, plant compounds, and has traveled the world in search of plants that help us deal with many of today's modern health problems. We will also look at a very powerful, small purple berry from the Brazilian rainforest called acai. The acai berry is being called the most powerful, nutrient-dense food on the planet. You will learn why acai berry is one of the most important foods to the people of the Brazilian rainforest and why it's making major headlines here in the U.S. on shows like Oprah, Good Morning America, and The Today Show, and we will discuss all its benefits to you. If you take a multivitamin and mineral supplement and think you're digesting it, you do not want to miss this show. Welcome back to the Natural Living Network Radio, Dr. Lindsay.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. We're very excited to hear what you have to say about the acai berry.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
But before we get going on the acai berry, can you explain a little bit more to us about nutritional deficiencies?
Oh, absolutely. A nutritional deficiency is just a deficiency in one or more nutrient that we have. For example, if you take people who have osteopenia or osteoporosis, those people would be deficient in what?
Calcium, other cofactors like vitamin D.
Exactly. Yeah. If you take people who are deficient in beta-carotene or vitamin A, they will have problems with what?
Their eyes?
Correct. Yep.
All right. It makes sense that in other cultures that have limited food intake, maybe access to one grain, would have nutritional deficiencies. But how in America, when we have access to all different kinds of foods, would we have them?
Well, we have them because our food is so depleted of nutrients. If you look at the fast food diet and the diet that so many people exist on, where the nutrients have been cooked out of our food, or we're eating, burgers and fries and milkshakes and coffee and donuts and, all the sugar and all the sweets and all the foods that really deplete our body, and you break these foods down, it's like, okay, well, these foods don't have very many nutrients in them. Yes, they're loaded with fat. Yes, they have some protein. Yes, they're loaded with cholesterol, but I don't really consider those nutrients.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, we're eating an empty harvest. If you go back and you look at even our topsoil, years ago, 50, 75, 100 years ago, our topsoil was loaded with nutrients where we grew our food. And now our topsoil is extremely weak in nutrients, and therefore our food is weak in nutrients.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense. Well, tell us a little bit more about the acai berry. What does acai do for people?
Well, acai helps to counteract all of these damaging things because it's such a high nutrient food. 1,000 years ago, during times of famine, the people of the Brazilian rainforest and the surrounding areas would actually live on the acai berry because it was the only thing they could get their hands on. It would sustain life. If you take the situation that we're under here in North America with the nutritional deficiencies, and I believe nutritional deficiencies affects 100% of our population, due to our modern lifestyles. Again, I don't want to be redundant, but the fast foods and the fried foods and the overprocessed foods and the foods that has had everything cooked out of it, the life, the enzymes, even the minerals in certain nutrients. I mean,
what about people who eat lots of vegetables or try to do organic, are they still susceptible?
Well, yes, they're doing better, but they are still susceptible because, if you look at the statistics 100 years ago, 1 cup of spinach had 140 to 150 milligrams of iron in it. Today, that same 1 cup of spinach has less than 2.2 milligrams of iron in it.
Wow.
So, again...
So we're really destroying our soil.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of bottom line.
Well, you take a square foot of soil where you grow a food, that broccoli or that cauliflower or that kale can only suck so many nutrients out of the soil before the soil can't produce any more. Mm-hmm. And then what we do, we think we're so smart, we come along and we shoot it full of nitrates, and we think that we're duplicating Mother Nature. We think that we're putting back into the soil everything that Mother Nature provided. And the fact of the matter is we're not. We're putting back some nutrients, but we're not putting back all the nutrients. Then we start to have nutritional deficiencies. Mm-hmm. Sarah, I brought something that's quite interesting. It's called the United States Senate Document 264. It was printed in the United States Congress in 1936 in Washington, D.C. The entire document talks about how our soil in the United States has become depleted and deficient in nutrients. And it says something very, very interesting, Sarah. In this document, it says that mineral-deficient soil will produce mineral-deficient foods, and that mineral-deficient foods will be eaten by people who will become mineral-deficient people that have mineral-deficient diseases.
Makes sense.
This is scary.
Yeah.
When was
this was when,
1936. Interesting thing it says on the second page. It talks about a 10-year study with rats that proved that by withholding one mineral, calcium, that the rats were bred down to 1/3 their size, and that the rats, once they depleted their bodies with calcium, they became very confused, they became very frustrated, very angry. They couldn't get out of the mazes that they were in, and instead of living in harmony, they started to fight, they became quarrelsome, and they actually started to become like cannibals. They started to try to eat each other. They put the calcium back in the rats' bodies, and then the rats started to live in harmony. They were able to get out of the mazes. They became less confused, and they actually started to live and sleep in piles. Do you know how rats actually sleep in a pile? Then they took the calcium out of their body again, and the same results happened. They started to get angry. They started to become like cannibals. They started to eat each other. They started to fight, to become very quarrelsome. They put the calcium back in their diet, and they started to live in harmony again. The point of this is that we do not realize how nutritional deficiencies are affecting our life today. Sarah, just look at what we do. The average American, the average person in North America starts their day with coffee and donuts, will go to lunch and they'll have burgers and fries, maybe something sweet. They usually eat really fast. They don't chew. They wolf it down. They inhale their food, right? And then we end up at night with fish and vegetables. People think that they're doing something really healthy for dinner when they eat fish and vegetables, and now the U.S. government is saying don't eat a lot of fish because the fish may be contaminated with mercury or lead or something like that. So now people really don't know what to do. And then they'll end dinner with sweets or sugar or, pie and ice cream, which, you can't mix all these foods together. This is just causing a combustion in our body, and people wonder why they bloat up so much and why they can't, digest their food. And then we end the night with some kind of, relaxant like wine or a beer or something like that. And then we wake up the next morning and we start this vicious cycle all over again. And Sarah, I'm not saying that all the listeners should run out and eat only sprouts and, live in the mountains somewhere and not exist in society. I know that that's not a logical request. I know that people aren't going to do that. But what I am saying is if you are going to do all these damaging things, and if you know that you're not getting enough nutrients from your food, then supplement your diet. Supplement the stressful, difficult, draining, depleting lifestyle that we exist in, that we live with every single day of our life. Supplement that with something that's going to give back, that's going to supply, that's going to give us the nutrients and the nourishment that we need to fight or to sustain in this difficult environment that we live in.
It's true, Dr. Lindsay. Our diet is terrible here in our culture, but then you add on top of that lifestyle issues like lack of exercise, sitting at a desk for 10, 12 hours a day, and then sitting in your car on the drive home.